Hello, everyone. We're just going to give people a couple more minutes to come join the session. There's lots of people hopping on. Everybody feel free to take this time to put yourself on mute just so there's not like a whole lot of other distractions. And we will get started in just a couple of minutes. So sit tight. Let's give everybody a chance to hop on. In the meanwhile, feel free to drop in the chat where are you from? Where are you watching this from today? My name is Dana. I'm currently in Busan. I've been in Korea for the past 6 months on 2 separate tourist visas, and I'm about to start studying Korean at a university in the next, oh my gosh, in like 2 weeks. I'm very, very, very excited about that. So hi, Asani from Mexico. Oh, I went to Mexico on a holiday once and had a great time. I often think about going back, but now it's quite far. Kenya, Emma from the US. What state, Emma? I'm from New Jersey. So maybe you're Utah. Emma, I lived in Utah for 10 years. I went to school out there, got my first job out there. I miss the mountains. Oh, nice. I genuinely miss the mountains. There's nowhere like Utah's mountains. I can't say I haven't been to Kenya, Rhea, don't know, but I'm sure it's beautiful as well. Okay. Chile. I also lived in Chile for 4 months teaching English and loved that as well. I was in a city called Ovalle, which is really quite small. And by quite small, I mean very small. Don't be offended, anyone. I'm going to put everybody on mute just again so that there's no like competing noise or anything like that. Okay. And this is being recorded just so everybody knows. Don't do anything sketchy. That ain't cool. Okay. I think we are going to go ahead and get started now that we've got a few of you in here. Guys, I am so excited about this masterclass. I did one of these yesterday and I had so much fun. Everybody else said that they had fun. And so I'm pumped to do it again. But first, I'm curious, what is everybody's motivation for wanting to, like, why are you guys here? Are you wanting to move to Korea full time, study Korean? Do you just like K-dramas and K-pop and want to kind of figure out how to get your foot in the door? What is your motivation for being here? Oh, Nikita says she can't hear me. Can everybody else hear me okay? Can everybody hear me and see me okay? Let me know if you're having... Okay, Nikita, maybe your volume is low. Like maybe your volume is off. Everybody else says, okay. Everybody else says it's coming through. So it might be something on your end. Feel free if you need to like leave the room and come back in, I'll just readmit you. No worries there. Okay, thanks everyone. So what is Study Korean and Move over there? Awesome, Hazel. Stray Kids got me. Stray Kids got you into this. I'm also a stay. I'm a multi-stan. Now I'm trying to figure out how to make Korean my career. Love that, Emma. Yes, totally possible. I'd really like to go to Korea to learn the language. I'm passionate about learning new languages. Francisca, me too. I got into this as a hobby and I got into learning languages as a hobby and fell into K-pop as a result of the languages. Kind of backwards. I think most people come K-pop and then do the languages. South Korea for employment, want to move there full time, study in Korea, travel over there one day. Unrelated Stray Kids bias, Felix, gotta be Felix. I mean, gotta be Felix. Okay. All right, with that, I'm going to actually get started and share my screen. Give me a second just to pull up the PowerPoint presentation. I'm always self-conscious of how many tabs I have open, so I try not to let anybody see my screen until the last possible minute. Okay, You're going to apply to Yonsei University for 2024. That's awesome, Victoria. Are you applying for like undergrad or language program? What are you, graduate school? What's the sitch? Do people say that? I don't know. Okay. Okay, this happened yesterday, and for some reason, my thing always freaks out when I go to share my screen, and I don't know why. I think because there's people waiting in the room. Okay, sorry. Every time somebody comes into the room, it pulls me away from my screen share. And okay, let's try now. Nope. What is happening? Dongguk University online in September. Very exciting. Very exciting. Okay. Why does this keep happening? This happened yesterday too. I apologize, everyone. I am not, full disclosure, I am not the world's most technologically savvy person. This happened yesterday. And I don't know what I'm doing. Stop it. Hold on. I'm going to stop my share and try again. Sorry, everyone. Oh, this always stresses me out so much. Hey, Google Chrome, what are you doing? Okay. It's up and it's not disappearing. Let me try again. Okay. Sorry, everyone. Just bear with me. Bear with me. Okay, can you all see my screen? Hopefully the answer is yes. It should be a very lovely PowerPoint that I spent a long time making. Okay, doing your undergrad design. Ooh, very nice. Thank you, Asani. Hi, Anna. Okay, yes, everybody with me on the technology. It sucks. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate it. Okay, we're going to dive in here. I want to make this as fun and interactive as possible. I realize that visas are not necessarily like the most grouping of topics, but hopefully we're going to change that and have a good time. So first, I want to just set some expectations for this class. I am in no way a Korean legal immigration expert or anything like that. I can 100% share with you what I have learned along my journey. I have done, God, 3 years worth of research, and I have a ton of valuable information to give. But I do just want to point out that all of this information can change literally it did change overnight. Last night, after I gave this session, Korea announced that they were enacting measures to bring 300,000 more university students to Korea. 300,000 last night after my class. So all of this information is obviously subject to change. I will do my best to always update you on my Instagram page and things like that. But I will hopefully also tell you the resources that are available to you to get the most updated information. I have that ebook guide that I also just put on my Instagram, like link in bio thing. That has all of like the official websites and stuff like that. So that would be where to go to get the most updated information. I just want to put on those expectations before we get started, so nobody's left disappointed. Okay, here's what you are going to learn today. You are going to learn about the different visas. And will there be access to this recording after the session? Yes. I will send an email out to everybody probably tomorrow. I don't know how long it's going to take for me to upload like an hour and a half or 2 hour long video. I think I'm just going to drop them on YouTube. That way you can access them like on the go. You don't need a special app or anything like that. I think YouTube is probably just the easiest. So yes, you will get access to this recording. You will also learn the process to apply for a visa, things to consider before deciding if Korea is right for you, very important. And at the end, we'll have a Q&A. I can already promise that I may not be able to answer every single question. Perfection is not a goal that I have for myself. That just sounds too stressful to me, but I will do my best. And at the very least, I should be able to point you in the right direction to find answers to your questions. Okay, moving on. So again, I just want to reiterate, this is not immigration or legal advice. I'm not a lawyer. So it can't be legal. Okay. So things to consider, particularly with Korea, I think because so many of us are obsessed with K-dramas and K-pop. There tends to be an over-romanticized view of what the country is. And that's common for any place, I think, that you want to move, right? Like when you're looking to move to a country, I know for years I wanted to move to the United Kingdom. For years, I would think, oh, the UK has all of these positives, and where I am in America has all of these negatives. So I was comparing negatives to positives. And that's, of course, just not a healthy place to be. That isn't how it's going to be. Korea is a country like anywhere else. It's got its pros and its cons. So it's really important that we're going to dive into those pretty briefly, but to dive into those first, to try and give like a balanced view of everything. Something that may help if you are still trying to decide, should I go to Korea? Should I not? How do I know? Is make a list of what is important to you in your life, the kind of community you want to have, safety, where you want to spend your time, the food you want to eat, those kinds of things. And then make a list of like the pros and cons of Korea and see if those things align with what you want. There's a whole worksheet on this in the ebook guide that I have, but if you can totally do this on just a plain piece of paper as well. Okay. So the first thing that we are going to address is the work culture. The work culture in Korea is intense. I think that's probably pretty well known. It's even intense in the K-dramas. There's no sugarcoating it. But I think the thing that needs to be considered is it really depends on the company you work for, and even more specifically, your exact manager. Things like company dinners are becoming a lot less common. Things like the strict hierarchy of roles are starting to switch to a more horizontal structure that's more common in, I'll say the West. I don't know where everybody is from, but maybe where you're from, that's a bit more common. But there is still very much the vibe of everybody stays until the last person is done working. You don't leave early just because your work is done. Korea does have the longest working hours on average in all of the OECD, which is it's a group of countries that are economically growing. It does have the longest working hours. That's just a fact. That's what the numbers say. And so if you do want to work here, that is something that you should be prepared for. It also, I will say that in the past like 10 years, as Korea has become more and more educated, almost everybody has an undergrad and or master's degree. There's a lot of competition for those office university degree types of jobs, which has kind of made them very competitive from a person-to-person perspective, but that means that salaries have dropped and stuff like that. Things like factory work, agriculture, farming, stuff like that. Nobody wants to do those jobs, so the salaries are also increasing. So I don't know what everybody's plan is in terms of working and studying here, but if you're like, oh, I don't have any skills, I don't really want to go to university, is it still possible for me? Yeah, and you could probably get paid pretty well. As far as figuring out if your company is a good company in terms of like work-life balance, ask those questions. Ask. It is not something that they will be used to. I think there's very much an attitude of you don't really question your manager, you don't really question your boss, you just kind of do what you're told. But you're a foreigner. You can get away with a lot more. Ask questions. See if you can talk to other people that work there. Just ask questions and just prepare yourself for the kind of work culture that you could experience. Is it worse or better than other parts of the country, other parts of the world? To be honest, again, this is going to depend on your industry and your company and your manager. So for example, I worked on Wall Street for several years. My work culture was much more intense than anything I've seen in Korea so far. I worked longer hours. It was way more stressful, way more fast-paced than anything I've seen in Korea. I think that's an industry thing more than like a country thing. So it's really just hit or miss. All right, just prepare yourself for the worst, but hope for the best. The study culture. I know a lot of you mentioned that you wanted to study here. Study culture is also pretty intense. A lot of Koreans are basically like trained to study. They start going to after school academies as early as like kindergarten, which is ridiculous. High schoolers will go to school in the morning at say 8 o'clock, finish their school, and then come back and study more after. Like they'll study until 10 p.m. at these academies. So the study culture is also pretty intense, but I would not say that necessarily means that they're any more efficient than anybody else. Oh, am I drawing? How does that happen? I don't know how that happened. Hopefully that will go away. Okay, it's gone. There is a huge emphasis, if you're coming to study here, there's a huge emphasis on memorization. All tests, whether it be for a language program or a university, seem to really focus on the memorization aspect, not on your ability to apply what you're learning. That's becoming a huge like hindrance in the workforce, as people can memorize, but they can't do jack. So they're starting to change that culture as well to try and have a more like dynamic workforce. But as of right now, it's still very memorization heavy. Okay, well, another point, the importance of knowing Korean. Obviously, you can get away with English. However, if you want to make Korean friends, if you want to really like dive into the culture and life in Korea, it is going to be essential for you to learn Korean. So in the meanwhile, between like now and when you're ready to study in Korea or when you find a job in Korea, start learning the language. It will only be an advantage to you. The government of Korea also just announced maybe 4 days ago, that they would be, it's people's Korean language abilities are more important to their immigration process than their skills. Their words, not mine. Their goal is to have people assimilate more than integrate into the culture. They want people to absorb their culture, not bring their own bits of language and culture into the country. Of course, what's going to happen is it's going to meet somewhere in the middle, but Korean is going to be extremely important, especially as more and more Koreans are able to speak good enough English to do jobs in English, to communicate with foreigners and stuff like that. Just knowing English isn't going to be enough to get your foot in the door. If you know another language in addition to English, that can be an advantage. Japanese, Chinese, French, Portuguese, whatever it is, there's not that many, obviously, native speakers who speak those types of languages. So you may be able to get a job, I don't know, in marketing in French to the French market that Koreaners just aren't going to qualify for. So it's a bit of a hit or a miss because those jobs are also probably going to be less in demand, like less frequent. But again, I just want to really emphasize, start learning Korean. I've found it to be like really fun as a hobby. Like I love it. So who knows, maybe you'll find yourself a new hobby along the way. I think this is the last point that I'm going to talk about, is discrimination. And that is because it obviously exists. It exists everywhere. But I think Korea gets a little bit of a bad rap here. I think that Korea has a very long, but very isolated history. I'll talk about where I'm from as an example. The United States obviously has very long, white, rough, shall we say, race relations. Rough is an understatement. But there have been hundreds of years to build up hate and animosity and negative feelings, negative experiences of one group against another, right? So it kind of is discrimination and racism with the motivation of like hate underneath. Korea doesn't have that much experience with other cultures and people. So they haven't really had the time to develop true hatred for anybody except for the people who once conquered them, which was Japan. But even that's starting to like change, particularly among the younger population. So there is discrimination. I'll talk about what kind of discrimination there is, but it's not hate-based. It's mostly they just don't know how to adapt to other cultures. They don't know how to think, oh, wait, could this be viewed as rude? Because they've been one homogenous culture for thousands of years, right? This new influx of tourists is something that they don't have like the skills yet to adapt into that. And I've found the country to be very friendly. Every time I reach out and talk to somebody or try to talk to somebody in Korean, they're always very like welcoming. They're very willing to help me. I realize I'm a white girl from the United States. I'm not necessarily in the high risk of discrimination and racism camp. That is full disclosure here. I can only talk about my experiences though. But a lot of times I think some of their formality and customs of like being extra super duper polite to foreigners is viewed as cold to the rest of the world. It is viewed as cold to us. Like that's exactly how I would describe it. But it's really them doing their best to be as polite as they possibly can. It's just because we have two different cultures, we have two different interpretations. Now, that being said, discrimination does still happen. It happens. Oh, thanks, Asani. I'm glad you agree. I'm glad this is kind of hitting with people. Feel free to let me like know your guys' thoughts in the comments. Feel free to like chime in at any point. I will not be bothered. I'd love to like go back and forth. There is discrimination in regards to, there are some bars and clubs, particularly in Seoul. I don't know that I've heard of this outside of Seoul, that for some reason will say no foreigners allowed. I don't know why. Truly have no idea. They're very few, but sometimes you won't be able to get into certain clubs. As well as in like the banking system, it can be difficult to borrow money as a foreigner because they're afraid you're going to leave without paying the money back. I get it. It's a legitimate concern. But that can make really any kind of, it can sometimes make getting an apartment very difficult because they have extremely high deposits here, which if you're interested in learning about the apartment system, just remind me during the Q&A session and I can dive a little bit more into that. But some landlords also do not want to rent to foreigners. And this could either be because of past bad experience or fear that they won't be able to communicate with their tenant. So there is that aspect of discrimination, and that is 100% always not okay. I hope we can all agree that all forms of discrimination are bad. But again, it seems to come from a lack of understanding, not necessarily like true deep-seated hatred of another person because of where they're from or what they look like or how much money they have. It's more like we don't know what to do here kind of thing. That's been my experience. I'm sure, no doubt, there's actually hateful people here. Of course there are, they're everywhere. But in general, that seems to be more of the vibe. Any questions about that before we move on? There is a Q&A session at the end, so feel free to also just type your questions now and we can get to them later. Okay, just going to take a sip of water. I won't need to do that frequently. I need water. Okay. Visa types. We are going to go into several different visas here today. D2, that is your undergraduate. Thanks, Asani. Undergraduate, graduate, study abroad visa. Your D4 is your language study visa. D10, job seeker visa. H1, working holiday. H for holiday visa. E2 is your English teacher visa, and E7 is going to be like your professional worker visa. If you see a visa here that is not or if you're looking at a visa that isn't mentioned, just feel free to bring it up in the Q&A. I probably know a little bit about it. It just isn't one that I focused on because it probably isn't as common. So the first thing that you need to know about all visas, this is going to apply no matter why you're coming to Korea, is that unless it's a holiday visa, you are going to have a visa sponsor, and that is going to be either your university or your employer. And the thing that I really want to point out here is that you will kind of be at the mercy of said university or employer. So like, behave yourself. Obviously, I'm sure you all would anyway, but behave yourself, because if you get fired or drop out of school, you also lose your visa, and you would have to leave the country. The documentation, certification, and verification process. This will also be true across the visa board here, is that you will need to submit original documents. So you can't just like photocopy your diploma or photocopy your birth certificate. You'll need to like email your university and be like, hi, I need another duplicate of my diploma. Or you'll need to go to your town or hospital or however the birth certificates work where you are, and get an actual like official government copy of your visa. Oftentimes, your documents will need to be notarized, which is something a lot of you may be familiar with. You can usually do it at a post office or a bank. It's basically just somebody signing off that, yes, this is a real document, this is official, hasn't been forged. And then other documents will need an apostille. Now, I had never heard of this before, so new vocab word for me and maybe for some of you. An apostille is basically, you take a document to a government office. I did mine at the Secretary of Treasury, I think, in New Jersey. You take your document to a government office. That government admin lady or man will sign off and say, hello, foreign government. Our government recognizes this document as being a real document. It's kind of like more for government to government kind of procedures. So almost all of your documents will need to go through that process. Don't delay. Let me tell you, I was so stressed about trying to get my documents apostilled. I don't know how to say it. I parked illegally. That's how stressful it was, that I parked illegally in a place known for giving tickets. So I didn't get a ticket, but it can be a very stressful process. Give yourself enough time to do it. Picking a school. This I'm going to bring up. When you send the original documents, how long does it? They will not return them back to you. These documents will not come back to you. Great question. So that's why I said, make sure they are like official duplicates, official government like copies. You will not get them back. Also, when you have a document apostilled, that like official apostille paper will be stapled to your document. Do not remove the staples, or it has the potential to invalidate that apostille. Keep everything exactly as it is. Don't remove the stapled certification apostille document. I wish I could show you mine, but I can't because I sent them and you don't get them back. I also realized there was another apartment question up. I'll get to that during the Q&A. Shivani, I haven't neglected you, I promise. Picking a school. The reason why I want to talk about this is because there's really 3 tiers. First tier is going to be the main 3 schools. They're called SKY as an acronym. Seoul University, Korea University, and Yonsei University, SKY. It's a great acronym. It's a good one. These are the most common, basically the equivalent of like the Ivy Leagues here in Seoul. They are the most expensive and the most competitive to get into. If you get into them, great, they're great schools. But if you're like, oh, I don't know, they're kind of expensive, maybe you want to drop down a tier and look at anything else inside of Seoul. That's kind of where the next level of competition is. Everybody wants to go to Seoul. Everybody wants to go to Seoul. The third tier is anything outside of Seoul. And can I just take a second? I'm going to step onto my soapbox and say, guys, Korea has so much to offer outside of Seoul. Like, yes, I fully agree. A bunch of great museums and art exhibits and stuff like that is in Seoul. But there's great aesthetic cafes everywhere. There's more nature outside of Seoul. It's less crowded, less expensive, still delicious food. You can still get all the foreign types of foods that would be in a international metropolis like Seoul. Busan is the beach. Busan has the city. Busan has so much nature. If you want shopping at like really cute boutiques, go to Seoul. If you're not into that, which I'm personally not that into that, I would much rather go and be like, whoa, this is cool. Step outside of Seoul. And again, that is not to say that Seoul is not awesome. You would be very happy in Seoul as well. But I feel like Seoul gets all the credit. And really, there's so much else to offer. Busan is building the world's first floating city. That's what the article said. I thought Venice counted as a floating city, but they said the first floating city. So I don't really know what they mean. But yeah, there's so much else that Korea has to offer there. Yes, Asani, I completely agree with you. Seoul is tourist based. So you're basically going to get like less of the real life kind of stuff and more of the, hey, we're putting on a show kind of thing. Again, Seoul is awesome. I love it. I really do. But as I've traveled to Gyeongju, as I've traveled to Daegu, I live in Busan and Jeonju, I've been like, whoa, this is like the heart and soul of a country, you know, is getting off of the beaten path. So there, I'm stepping off my soapbox, just giving everybody the encouragement to at least consider somewhere outside of Seoul. Just consider it. Finding a company. Oh, one last thing about picking schools, forgive me. I was wanting to aim for Busan if universities was an option. This gave me a lot of confidence in Busan. Emma, come. We'll even hang out. Yes, come. I love Busan. I really, really do. It's got so much, like it just feels so much more relaxing here. Like Seoul is very much like New York. It's fast paced and everybody's got their head down and nobody ever smiles. And and for me, Busan was like, oh, people are happy here. People do have time to stop and smell the roses, as it were. Um, Songkla, yes, it is a coastal city. It's stunning. I completely agree with you. And anybody, feel free to correct me if I have mispronounced your name. Itaewon is so beautiful. Also true. Also true. The whole country is beautiful. You really won't go wrong. Let's just put it that way. You won't go wrong. Would Jeju be an option? Sure. Jeju does have a university. Jeju does have plenty of jobs, particularly in the tourism field. I'm not sure. I know they have a university. I don't know what kind of programs it offers, if that's something that you're interested in. Keep in mind, Jeju is an island, stunning, but also very touristy. So during like the winter down season, it may be a little bit more dead than it would be in like the peak travel season. Just something to keep in mind. In terms of finding a company, I'm going to give you 3 websites. So take a second while I'm rambling, get your pen and paper out. Which university is best study for an MBA? I would look at independent rankings. I don't know exactly which one is the best MBA program. Any of those Sky universities would be perfectly fine. But look at independent rankings on maybe like Forbes or I can drop a link at the end once I find it. Times Higher Education Rankings, I think is what it's called. And they might have a list of university like best MBA programs and whatever. Okay, hopefully everybody has your pen and paper ready for finding jobs. You know, I'm actually just going to put them in the chat because the spelling is sometimes a little bit difficult, doesn't necessarily make sense. So there are three main job sites. The first one is LinkedIn, which most of you are probably familiar with. I probably don't need to spell that out. LinkedIn. The next is Saramin, and the last is People in Job. Those are the three most common that I hear talked about the most. Obviously, there's others as well. Saramin and People in Job are very Korean heavy. A lot of, like I said, with knowing Korean, a lot of the infrastructure is not Korean and English. It's just Korean. Their map system is just Korean. Their banking system is just Korean. Their job sites are just Korean. If you open up these sites in Google Chrome will auto-translate them for you because Google is the best. And that's going to be essential. These websites are not user-friendly. They have a terrible user interface, but they are the most common for job hunting. You will see there if a job is sponsoring a visa, what the job is, the description, stuff like that. Just like anywhere else, you're probably going to have to apply for like a bajillion jobs just to get one interview. That's common everywhere nowadays. I know it's the same in the States as well. So yeah, just something to keep in mind. Okay. Also, if you see my eyes dart around, there's a little gnat flying around that keeps distracting me. Okay, let's dive into it. Everybody get the wiggles out, give yourself a little shake, because we are going to dive into the nitty-gritty visa details. So this is your D2 visa. This is your visa to study at a Korean university. This will apply to undergrad, postgrad, study abroad, any of those kinds of things. Essentially, the way that it works is like D2-1 will be for study abroad, D2-2 undergrad, T2-3 masters, et cetera, right? All visas will have like those extra categories at the end. Keep in mind that you can only work part-time jobs on this visa. The limit up until they announced a change last night, so again, everybody yesterday got stale information, is you used to be able to work 25 hours a week. They are upping that to 30 hours a week. And they will be expanding. They're kind of going to do like, from what I understood from the initial release of details, I'm sure more will come out. But from what I read last night, they're kind of going to work on creating career pathways for people who study in Korea upon graduation to get a job, get citizenship, get permanent residency in Korea, because they have a shrinking population and they want people to come and stay there forever. So you will be like, there's probably going to be changes in the work requirements, the work limitations here over the next coming weeks and months. So keep an eye out for that. I'll post any updates on my Instagram stories and my Korean run-throughs as I do. So just keep in mind that that's going to change. They specifically mentioned they want to try and give foreigners more work experience and more internship opportunities while going to school. What that looks like, we don't know yet. Keep in mind that you cannot teach of any kind on this visa. I don't think that will be changing. The jobs that are currently available to you are more like cafe, editing, writing, those kinds of, typical university part-time jobs. Immigration and the university will need to approve your work plan. I don't think they typically say no, but if you're like failing, they may be like, you need to study, not work. So just keep that in mind as well. And again, kind of what I talked about on the previous slide, just look at the cost of living in the city that you're thinking of going to university in. Make sure you have the funds to support yourself for at least the first 6 months. And, maybe if things are tight, maybe look outside of Seoul, maybe look into a more, this is something they did say in the articles last night, is there's going to be incentives for people to study at universities outside of Seoul, whether that be more scholarships, whether that be more job opportunities. Again, they didn't release that much detail, but they're going to try and use new students to kind of revitalize everywhere else over 50% of the country's population lives in Seoul. Can you imagine that? In the United States, that would be 150 million people living in one city. In Seoul, that's about 25 million people living in one city, and then 25 million in the rest. Like, can you imagine the traffic? You ain't getting anywhere. The subways are, consider other places. Okay. The requirements for this visa, I notice that there's kind of broken up. Part is purple, part is green. Certain countries have different requirements. Not my fault, don't shoot the messenger. But the general requirements that will apply to everybody, you obviously need a visa application form. And this is the visa requirements. On the next slide, I'll talk a little bit about what the school requirements are. You'll need a passport. You'll need a visa fee, which is approximately $60 to $90. You'll need a photo. You'll need an original certificate of admission. This is the university. The university will provide this for you. Because again, the university is your sponsor. So they basically have to provide a document saying, yes, this person is going here. She's not making it up. It's real. And then a copy of the business registration from the Korean university. So just a document to make sure that the university really exists. If you are from, regret the way that I did these bullets, but you will need a tuberculosis test if you are from one of these 19 countries. What if I have my own freelancing set up, applying for a university? I think you'd be fine before applying for university. I think you'd be fine. To be honest, let me say that that's the unofficial answer. Officially, not allowed. Unofficially, they wouldn't know. Just keep all the money outside of Korea. Don't like put any freelancing money into your Korean bank account. Don't freelance to Koreans. They wouldn't know. But that's the unofficial answer. The unofficial answer. I don't want to get in trouble. Don't do anything illegal. Wink. Okay. So if you're from one of these 19 countries, you will need a tuberculosis test. Yes, secret. If you need additional documents, you'll need, sorry, let me rephrase that. If you're from one of these 21 countries, you can go ahead and see if your country is listed there. You will need 2 additional documents, final academic credentials, which is your transcript, that's the word I'm looking for, and a financial statement. So either $20,000, including the tuition fee, and or a scholarship. So keep that in mind. Okay, the process of applying for a visa. A lot of this, I've laid this out really in a very basic way, just because I know this can be so intimidating. So I really, really niched it down here. The first step is going to be find your university. Make sure you check what majors they offer. See what kind of career placement services they have. Again, I'm sure those will be changing since the announcement last night, but check see what's available now. The second step is going to be prepare your documents. Obviously, every university is going to have different documents. There's no getting around that. This is generally what you will need. So you'll need an application, obviously, to apply. You'll need a bank statement showing $10,000 to $20,000 US. That's because you can't work. They need to make sure that you can support yourself during that time, that you aren't going to be working illegally during that time. Evidence of graduation, so like your high school diploma, most likely apostilled. Certificate of attendance. I didn't have this at my university, but I'm assuming you would just go to your school secretary and be like, hi, can you please print out my attendance? And then have somebody notarize that. Your official transcript, apostilled. Evidence of Korean proficiency. This is another thing that they mentioned changing last night, but I'm a little bit skeptical over, because if you are studying at a Korean university and your classes are in Korean and your tests are in Korean, I don't know how you get around that. You will probably need to know, you will need to have at least Korean level 3 in order to be able to do undergrad, unless you are studying English, maybe. So definitely do keep that in mind, that if you want to study undergrad or grad or whatever, there is a requirement for you to be proficient in Korean so that you can actually pass your classes. You will need a photocopy of your passport and you will need a birth certificate. Once you do that, once you have all your documents, you can go and apply for your university. This is usually, again, every university is going to be different, but 3 to 4 months before the start of the next semester. So don't wait until like the last week to start getting your documents. Get your documents as early as you can, and then just keep them in a safe place and then apply. You will need to send in those physical documents. You can start the application with like scans of them, but they will need to receive the physical documents by the application deadline, or your application will not be, will be canceled. What's the word? Will be rejected. That's the word. So once you get into university, then you apply for your visa. You cannot apply for your visa first because your university needs to agree to sponsor that visa. Once you, to do this, you make an appointment at, yes, I will answer that in the Q&A section, Asani, thank you. In order to apply for a visa, you will need to make an appointment at your local Korean embassy. So you can Google Korean embassy in New York, Korean embassy in Chile, Korean embassy in blah, blah, blah. And on each of those websites, there will be a place for you to make an appointment. There will be like a visa and consular services tab. That is where the most updated document requirements will be, just again, in case anything changes, as it's might. There will be like a visa counselor tab, should have the visa requirements there. Make an appointment on that website as well. Once you do that, and once you get your visa, you can book your flights and you can come to Korea. Try to avoid booking your flights until you do get that visa, just in case there's any kind of complications. But yeah, then the adventure begins. D4, this is your language study visa. So if you are wanting to study in Korea, you may consider coming on this visa first. This is the visa that I'm going to be on once I start school in two weeks or so. Oh, I already explained that. Don't stress too much about the exact program here. This is not like a university degree program. They're all set up exactly the same way. People say this university is better at speaking. They're all set up. I've talked to several people. The classes are all 4 hours a day, 5 days a week, 2 hours of grammar and vocab, an hour of speaking and writing, and an hour of reading and listening. Reading and writing and speaking and listening. Sorry, I had those mixed up. So you don't need to stress too much. They're all exactly the same. Everybody stresses out, what language schools should I go to? It doesn't matter. Pick one where you want to be, that you can afford, that you think you'll enjoy, and it's basically the same as anyone else. Here as well, you can't work for the first 6 months, and only then, once approved by the school and immigration, can you start to work the same kind of part-time jobs that are on the that apply to the D2. This visa was not really mentioned in the announcements yesterday, so I don't know if there's any changes coming to the hours or the type of work or anything like that. I don't know yet. But the moral of the story here is make sure that you have enough funds to support yourself. I would say on average, you'd probably need, let's say, $1,000 to $3,000 a month, just depending on your budget, depending on your lifestyle that you want to live. It's a rough estimate. Don't quote me on that, but that's about average, I would say. Okay, the requirements for this, much more simple. You need your visa application form. You need your passport. You need your photo, 2 by 2 inches. Mine's the wrong size. You need an original certificate of admission. Again, just a document that's the university saying, yes, she's going here. You'll need a copy of the business certificate, and you will need a visa fee, usually 45 to 60 USD. Okay, process. Find your university. I do think there are other like non-university Korean programs, but I do not think those would qualify you for a visa, just FYI. So find your university, consider the cost, location. Those are really going to be the big differences since the programs are so similar. Prepare your documents, the application form. Oh, these are the documents for the university, not the visa. Application form, bank certificate under the applicant's name. I'll answer this question now, Asani, since it applies. You can use your parents' bank statements for any of this stuff. You can use your parents' bank statements. Just be prepared to show their ID. Passports would probably be fine. And you would need to show how you're related to them. So you would need, again, your birth certificate would have your parents' names on it, and then ID showing them. That's basically how you would need to like prove the connection of who you are, that this isn't just a sugar daddy or a sugar mama giving you this money. That wouldn't be okay. There needs to be like a family documented connection. So there's that, or $10,000 in your name, copy of a passport, notarized birth certificate, and a letter of self-introduction. My university required it. Maybe others won't. It was really easy. Hi, I'm Dana. I can't wait to study Korean here. Just, schmooze it up. Okay. Applying to the program. These, to be honest, there's not a single Korean website about any topic that I've ever found that is intuitive to use. The dates aren't clear. Nothing is clear. So in general, plan to apply to your university about 2 months before the program starts. You might have to dig deep to find exact dates. It's not clear. And I looked at like 4 or 5 different programs. It's not clear, but just do your best and you really pay attention 2 months before, 3 to 2, maybe a little bit earlier, 3 months before, so that you're fully ready to apply when it opens. Once you get accepted, and again, these language programs are not like university degrees. They're just basically like money-making opportunities for the university. You're not going to get rejected unless like they genuinely have run out of space, or they, I don't know, you're a felon. They don't even do background checks though, so how would they know? It's very unlikely. I've never ever heard of anybody getting rejected from a language program. It's not like a university degree program. So once you get accepted, you can go ahead and apply for your visa. Same process. You can make an appointment on the Korean embassy website in your local city or country. This is one of the few visas, though, that you can apply for while in the country. So this is what I am doing. I'm transferring from a tourist visa to a Korean language visa, a D4 visa. Not all visas are able to do this. This is one of, I think, maybe 2, the other one being a marriage visa that you can do from a tourist visa. So just keep that in mind. But once you get your visa, book your flights and start your Korean adventure. D10, job seeker visa. This is a useful, handy dandy little thing. It's a bit complicated, but if you are here on a working contract and your contract is finished and you need to switch jobs, or you're graduating from a university and you want to start looking for a job, the D10 visa is how you can remain in Korea for up to a year and do that. Like I said, it's a little bit complex. You'll need to have a lot of documentation. But in the meanwhile, you can accept internships, and they are starting to implement part-time work to support yourself on your job hunt. So if you needed to take advantage of this, it is an option. This is Busan, by the way. Most of the pictures are Busan. Busan. Okay, the requirements for this visa, like I said, it's a little bit more complicated. You need to have one of these 5 qualifications in order to be eligible for a D10 visa. If you do not have one of these 5, you can't just come and look for a job. So you need to have been employed by a Fortune 500 company for more than 1 year in the past 3 years. You need to have graduated from a university like on the Times Higher World University rankings in the past 3 years. A graduate of a local Korean university, so again, graduating university would be fine. A current e-visa employee, we're going to cover a couple of e-visa jobs in a moment, or 60 points in the point system. There's not a really great way for me to lay this out in a PowerPoint because it's long. But the point system is basically where obviously Korea, like any country, wants to attract high quality talent and like the creme de la creme. So they will award points for your age, for your education level, for your Korean level, all of these kinds of things. So for example, this is all laid out and there's a whole checklist of these points in the e-guide. But I know that like if you're 23 to 25, 20 to 25 or something like that, it's 23 points, 25 to 29, it's 25 points. But if you're over 50, it's only 3 points. So you can see even just there, your age is about 30%. So don't be too stressed if you're like, oh my gosh, points, it's not that hard to achieve. If you have one of these 5 and you want to apply for a D10 visa, you can then complete your visa application, get a passport photo, just a passport sized photo, a passport, flight itinerary. You don't need to book your tickets. And again, nobody recommends that you book tickets until after you have your visa. You just need to show them, hey, this is how I'm planning to get there. A letter that includes your like job seeking plan. Hello, immigration officer. I plan on going to networking events and practicing my Korean while something general. Like there is a document that I have linked in the e-guide, but it's basically just like every month 1, I'm going to be doing this. Month 2, I'm going to be doing that. Again, you can Google that, or it's in the e-guide as well. You're going to need a visa fee. This is different for every country, so I can't give you numbers. And then again, any of these things are going to have to be verified, right? So if you're coming as like an experienced worker and leveraging this, you're going to have to show that you were employed, in fact, by a Fortune 500 company. That could be a document from the company saying, yes, this person worked here on these dates, whatever. Recent graduates, you will need your diploma apostilled, I don't know. The process, this is one, again, because of, it can be done from inside of Korea, but you cannot do it from a tourist visa. You can only do it from another D2 visa or an e-visa. So if you're outside of Korea, plan your documents, make an appointment at your local embassy. And again, don't book your flights, but make your appointment at your local embassy, show up, do the whole shebang. If you're inside of Korea, make sure that you plan your appointment before your current visa expires. And these visa appointments do fill up, so book well in advance. However, if you do find yourself unable to make an appointment, you are allowed to walk in on the last day of your visa, or like the day. If they say the last day, I would go the day before because I just couldn't handle the stress, and walk into immigration and get your visa changed. Once your visa is approved, book your flights, come to a Korea. Don't do that before you get your visa approved. H1, holiday in the sun, the fun visa. This is the working holiday visa. This is a reciprocal visa agreement that Korea has with 25 other countries, that lets you travel around. You can study Korean. You can get a job at a cafe to support yourself. It's like really chill and kind of fun. Yeah, it's really chill and kind of fun. So, yeah, there was something I was going to say, but I lost it. Okay, it's only available to 25 countries. I will lay out that on the next slide. It's a great option for you. Here, if you're from one of these countries, that means that you and Korea have like an agreement with each other. Probably goes both ways. Korea can probably do a working holiday visa in these countries as well. Keep an eye on the quotas. You'll notice that some of these countries, I know we have somebody in here from Chile. Chile has a 100 quota. So you're going to want to apply in like December, January, not in like October, because chances are those visas may be gone by that time. So take a second, see if you're on this list, and then look at the requirements. So you do need, I think, where do I have this? Hold on. For some reason, I didn't write this down, but you do need to be in the ages of 18 to 30 at the time that you apply. Why isn't that on here? I'm surprised. Apologies. You do need to be between the ages of 18 and 30 to be eligible for an H-1 visa. You cannot be in your 40s. You cannot be in your 50s. This is part of that discrimination. A little bit of ageism here as somebody who is 31, a little bit of ageism, but they don't want somebody who's going to like fall ill and need their services. Young people tend to not need healthcare and stuff like that. So that is a requirement. You must be 30 at the time of application. You can get you'll need a valid passport, recent photograph, your visa application, proof of a round trip airline ticket, proof that you have funds to support yourself. And let me say that if you do not want to buy your round trip ticket, you can say, hey, here's the date of a flight that I'm thinking of getting. I haven't booked it yet, but here is the money to sustain myself plus extra money for a flight. You need to have your cost of living plus airfare. So you would just need to have a little bit more in the bank if you didn't want to book your flight in advance. And you would need funds to support yourself for at least 3 months. I think this is under the assumption that it would take you about 3 months to find a job. You would need, if you're from Japan or the US, you need proof of student status or your highest academic qualifications. If you are from Canada, New Zealand, or France, you will need evidence of your criminal record. And if you are from Australia, Canada, New Zealand, and France, you will need a medical exam. And the whole reason for that is just again, those are the requirements that go back and forth. Okay, the process, prepare your documents. Again, if you are from a country that has a bit of a lower quota, you're going to want to do this earlier in the year instead of later. Apply for your visa, make an appointment at your local embassy. You cannot switch to this visa while already in the country. And once you get approved, you can book your flights and come to Korea. Okay, E2. One moment, please. Okay, your E2 visa. This is your visa to teach English in Korea. This is, again, one of probably the most common visa out there, which is why I included it. You have to be from a native English-speaking country. If you're going to teach English, you have to be a native speaker. So Australia, Canada, New Zealand, Ireland, South Africa, the USA, or the UK. These are options for you. There are plenty of recruiters available who have a lot of experience in matching applicants with schools. So that can be a great option for you if you are interested in this, but you're like, oh, seems hard. I don't know how to do this. Find a recruiter. There's tons out there. I have a list of them in that ebook, e-guide. You should never pay a recruiter. They should be paid by the school that is employing them to find their workers. So do not pay them. That's a scam. Don't fall for no scams. You can also look at schools yourself. There's a website called Dave's ESL Cafe that would have a lot of jobs that you can kind of look at yourself and go through the process without the help of a recruiter. The last thing is to make sure to read your contract so carefully. Have I emphasized that enough? Read your contract so carefully. This is going to detail exactly what you are going to be responsible and held for. And they love throwing the contract back in your face, being like, you have to do it. It's in your contract. So read your contract. Most of these are for 1 year. The contracts are for about a year. You can extend your E2 visa after, either at that school or another school. And it's kind of a way for you to stay in Korea for as long as you want to be teaching English. So it's a great option. Your flights, round trip flights, will usually be provided for you. Severance pay at the end of your contract will usually be provided, and housing. You will get housing and or a stipend. So the salaries aren't super duper high, but you're not paying for housing, which is crazy expensive. So there's a lot of like really great benefits here. I know just because they're providing housing doesn't mean that you're going to like the housing, but alternatively, they may provide a housing stipend to help cover your rent specifically. So when that's taken into account, the pay is actually not bad, in my opinion. There's also yes, I know, even housing is covered. So lots of benefits here. There's also a blacklist of schools. The website is called Tokyo John, Korea School Blacklist or something like that. If you Google it, it's linked in my in the ebook. But yeah, that'll really help you make sure you know what you're getting into. And guys, make sure you know what you're getting into. There's a horse. This is the same thing I was talking about before with the work culture, right? Some schools are fantastic. Some schools are horrible. Do as much due diligence as possible on your side. Just a second. Okay. So the requirements for this, you must be a native English speaker. We already talked about that. A medical self-assessment. I looked at this document. It literally is like, do you have any infectious diseases? Yes, no. It's really pretty easy. Apostilled photocopy of a bachelor's degree. You do need a degree. You need a background check. You're going to be working with children. That's common, I think, everywhere. You'll need your resume, photocopy of your passport, a passport-sized photo. And then this is the same kind of thing, notice of appointment and contract. So this would be basically your employment contract showing that you are actually going to work at such and such a school for such and such a time. Most schools will require you to have a teaching English as a foreign language certification. They're pretty easy to get. I think they're like $100, $200. Go through like 40 hours to learn how to teach English. Like I said, I taught English in Chile, and boy, do I wish that I was more prepared, because teenagers are very intimidating. Korean teenagers are probably really quiet and nice, but I was very intimidated. So give yourself every advantage. Get a TEFL certification. But that's not a visa requirement. That's just a added school requirement. Okay, so your process. First, you're going to want to understand the different types of school systems that there are here. There is the Hagwon, which is the after-school academies that I was talking about before. So they go after school until as late as 10 p.m. sometimes. Plenty of those, but they aren't regulated. So it's very likely that you may end up with a Hagwon that doesn't provide the best work-life balance, because they aren't, yeah, I know, they go stupidly late for these are children. I wasn't even allowed to stay up till 10, let alone out studying until 10. Yeah, but they are not regulated. So keep in mind that the kind of quality of work environment is going to swing on a very broad spectrum here. Your public school, there's a great program called EPIK, E-P-I-K. Again, all of this information is all linked, like hyperlinked in the ebook, which I think is a lot easier than me just saying all of these things or you remembering them. The public school system is, again, going to have more set hours. It's going to be very clear about like what your job descriptions are and stuff like that. If you teach at a public school through the government-sponsored program, you do not get to choose where you're placed, which again, I've already talked about how great other parts of Korea can be. If you teach at a public school but don't go through the EPIC program, you will, of course, get to have a choice in where you go. A private institution, there's tons of like foreign schools, international schools, stuff like that. The pay will also probably be maybe slightly better, but no guarantees there. Tutoring is not allowed. So you cannot privately tutor on the side. People have gotten deported for being a teacher during the day and then tutoring at night. It's not allowed. Apply for jobs. You can, like I said, either use a recruiter or you can find jobs on a job board like Dave's ESL Cafe. The contracts are usually for a year at a time. Never seen anything shorter than that, I don't think. And keep in mind, the Korean school year starts in March. So if that's something that you're interested in, applying December, January for then like have February to get your visa, move to Korea. That's kind of the time frame that you want to be looking at. Apply for a visa. Once you get a position, you will get your documents that you need from the school, and you will make an appointment at the Korean embassy and you will get your visa. These visas do tend to be processed pretty quickly. So once you start like accepting your position, you could be in Korea in as little as like 6 to 8 weeks. So just kind of prepare yourself for the speed that this process can go sometimes. And as I already mentioned, one of the benefits of this visa is that the school will often provide you with housing or a stipend. So that's one less thing to worry about. And flights. So that's also pretty cool. And the last visa that we are going to be talking about is the E7 visa. And this is the one that kind of blew up on Instagram that I didn't really mean anything by, but this is the one that I was talking about. This is the professional working visa. It is only available for certain jobs and industries, but I literally had to hand type out a whole list because I couldn't copy and paste it into the ebook. I had to type it out, and almost everything is there. Like animal breeding is there. Agricultural expert is there. Engineers are there. Scientists are there. Finance people, managers are there. So there's a lot of still flexibility within this E7 visa. But again, there's the potential that your exact career path isn't there. And I think it's also important to note that your employer has to make a case to the Korean like visa people, the immigration people. And so if there's a good case for you, there's a lot of like gray area, right? Because how do you define an expert? Am I a visa expert because I know a lot and I have a lot of skills in this area, but I don't have a degree? Like there's a lot of flexibility where employers could make a case if they really wanted to. So just keep that in mind. You may have to show them a bit more of what you offer and what you bring to the table in order for them to be like, oh yeah, I see this. I see how we can work this through immigration. It's a little bit gray, right? And the requirements are still pretty complex, but we will go on to that right now. So it's kind of broken into two parts. Let me explain this. You must have one of these 3 things or one of these, 6 things that provides you with an exemption from the above. If you do not have either of these things, you are not considered skilled professional worker or whatever, and you will not be able to get a visa. So you need to hold a master's in the degree that in the field that you are looking to work in. You need to have a bachelor's degree and 1 year of experience. You need more than 5 years of work experience. So I guess if you didn't have a degree, this would be your option. More than 5 years of work experience in the field you're being hired in. So I guess there's even a way for you to come without a bachelor's degree, right? If you've been working in whatever for 5 years. Or if you do not have one of those 3, you can do 1 year or more of work experience of a Fortune 500 company. You can have graduated from one of the top 200 universities, a bachelor's degree from a Korean university. If you're a high-tech intern on Remember, D10 was the job seeker visa. So this is an internship on that kind of visa. And your wages are greater or equal to the GNI. Don't panic. There's an acronym. Don't panic. The GNI stands for gross national income. And last year, this was about $32,661 US dollars. The reason why I didn't put that is because if somebody watches this 3 years from now, hello, future people, it's 2023. If people watch this 3 years from now, the GNI will need to be adjusted for the year prior, right? So last year, 2022, the gross national income, I think that's what it stands for, was $32,661. You can just Google that. It's really easy. Korea 2022 GNI. So you'll need to be an intern and have wages equal or greater to 32,661 USD. What does it mean by Fortune 500 companies? Great question. So Fortune is a business magazine, and they will basically list out like the 500 biggest companies in the world. So that's essentially what that is. The biggest, I don't know if they're the biggest or the most profitable, but you can also Google that, and that should bring you up a list of 500 companies. Yeah, so basically big companies. Your small little like mom and pop shop, probably not going to count. Well, it's not going to count. It's not a Fortune 500 company. Google, Amazon, Walmart, Disney, those are definitely on the list. You need to have an employment recommendation from a government ministry. I personally have no idea how you would go about getting that. And an income of 1.5 times the GNI. So that would be like about a little over 45,000 US dollars. Or you just need to be a highly compensated professional with 3 times the GNI. So about 32 times 3 is 96K. If you fit one of these criteria, you will need to have, again, an employment letter, something showing that you are going to be employed there. Company registration docs, so your articles of incorporation that show that the company really exists. Documents showing the company's sales performance. So I think they don't want people bringing people into the country and then have the company go like bankrupt the next day. Your employment contract, the company needs to show that they don't owe taxes. You will need to show your diploma or your past work experience, because again, you will have to verify whatever qualification you're leveraging. So the process here, I already kind of mentioned some job sites in the chat. I'm going to say them again. They're right here. Theremin, People in Job, LinkedIn are the 3 main sites that people go to find these types of jobs. You're going to have to send a lot of applications. You're going to have to reach out and follow up to a lot of people, but don't give up. Just be patient and stick with it. It happens all the time. People get jobs to move to other countries literally every day. So it could be you. Then you're going to need to prepare your documents, apply for your visa, book your flights, move to Korea. These are pretty straightforward. We've gone over these aspects quite a bit. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and drop the link for the ebook just in case anybody wants it and is like, that was a lot of freaking information. I don't know what to do with all of this. What do I do? Let me see if I can do this. Come back. Okay. We're going to just drop it in the chat. And with that, it's pretty cheap. It's less than 20 bucks. I tried to make it accessible to everybody. If for some reason you have financial difficulties and it's out of reach for you, truly out of reach, like let's be respectable, honest people here, then feel free to DM me and I can totally help you out. Okay. Q&A, what you got for me? I know there's one. Let me scroll back to Shivani's question. I heard that they have financial standard, like the rent and even normal things are really expensive. What about it being outsider? Okay, so Shivani, great question. The first and most important thing to know about the Korean rental system is that their deposits are not like 1 month of rent. It's like $20,000, $30,000. Um, it is possible to find some in Seoul for $10,000. I looked for a bit and I found not a lot. In Busan, $5,000 is possible. The higher your deposit, oftentimes the lower the monthly rent that you have to pay. So a lot of times foreigners need to take out a loan because, or anybody, doesn't have to be a foreigner, Koreans too, don't necessarily have 30, 40, $50,000 sitting around. There's a separate type of rent that's hundreds of thousands of dollars of a deposit. And that just is not within people's grasp to pay without a loan. So that's kind of where the not being able to borrow money from a Korean bank becomes prohibitive, because the rental system is so weird. And so that's really kind of the only thing that you need to be aware of. I will also add, if anybody's looking to come to Korea to study or do whatever, you do not sign any apartment documents before you physically view the apartment yourself. They are notoriously scammy with stuff like this. They will post basically anything that you see online is not real. They post a picture online, be like, look at this apartment I have. You go to the real estate agent and they will say, oh, shucks, that apartment just got rented out. Let me show you what else I have. And then show you stuff that's not even close to what the picture looks like. So just keep that in mind. The apartment process does go very, very quickly. When I ended up moving in with my boyfriend, but when I was going through the looking process, and I was talking to him, I was like, how long before I start school do I need to come? Do I need to come a month before? And he's like, no, like 2 weeks. So they find apartments in like 2 weeks here. Very, very fast. Find apartment, move in 2 weeks. Yeah. So let me know, Shafani, if you have any follow-up or further questions on that topic, and I'd be happy to answer them more specifically. Victoria has asked a question. I'm curious to know if you've experienced staying in Incheon. Not many people talk about it. Yonsei has 3 campuses, and the major I'm planning to do is located on the Incheon campus. I love how you encourage picking schools outside of Seoul. Cool. So Incheon is like a satellite city. So this is not a good example, but I'm from New York, so this is really the only example I have for you. So like New York City is obviously a huge city, but then there's little satellite cities that are 10 minutes outside. Incheon is a little bit further than 10 minutes, but it is maybe like half an hour outside of Seoul. So you're really close. You could get in with a train, public transit, but you would not be in Seoul proper. That being said, Incheon, I've never been, but from my understanding and my research about so many different things in Korea, it's got a lot more of like a quiet, more suburban vibe, which you may be into, you may not be into. Again, really still very connected to Seoul, cheaper than Seoul. A lot of people in Seoul are moving to places like Incheon and other like satellite cities just outside of Seoul, because Seoul is becoming so expensive that they can't live there anymore. So if Yonsei University is a great university, I'm sure their campus in Seoul is where I went to school for a week before I withdrew and moved into with my boyfriend. Yonsei had a great campus in Seoul. I'm sure the campus in Incheon is just as nice. Incheon, I think, is a bit of a newer city, got plenty of housing, lots of apartments. And I agree, nobody talks about it because everybody only talks about Seoul. But I've heard great things about Incheon. Incheon, I know, has a strong expat community. Lots of expats live in Incheon. So you'll be able to find not just other students, but maybe other people who have been in Korea a little bit longer, to like help build a community, which is so important when you arrive in a new country. So Victoria, let me know if you have any further follow-up questions or want more information, and I will do my best to provide. Hold on, everyone. Okay. Is it possible to try the teaching visa with an associate's degree? Also, what if you work for the federal government? How would that work for the working visa? Great question. Hazel, do you mean your government, wherever, like whatever country you're from, or do you mean the Korean government? In the meanwhile, I think you need a bachelor's. I don't think they allow associate's degrees. You can talk to some recruiters. I suggest reaching out to a recruiter to get like an official answer and see what they say, because again, so much of visas is gray areas. So much of visas is like the mood of the immigration officer that day in terms of whether you get rejected or denied. So never say never, but I'm pretty sure you need a bachelor's degree. And then let's see, the USA government. Oh, okay. Yeah. So if you are going to be working for a foreign government, there are visas for that, but they're a little bit different. Like Korea has a lot of US military bases, and they have something called an FSAIC. I'm not positive on that acronym. But you will get a visa. The US government is going to make sure that everything is fine there, or whatever, not just the US government, whatever government anybody else happens to be working for, will make sure that that happens. But it would not be an E7 visa. It's not a Korean company. So there would be a separate visa for that. These might be A visas. Don't quote me on that either. If you guys ever have further visa questions, you can Google Korean visa portal and it should show you each qualification. But again, since you're working for a separate government within the country, very possible. It happens all the time. The US employs a ton of people here, particularly the military, but obviously also jobs outside of that. Teachers on US bases. Hazel, there's an option for you. That you probably would not necessarily need an associate degree because you don't need an E2 visa. You would be employed by the US government on the military base. So there's an option for any other American citizens, is get a job on the US bases. Yeah, let me know if that answers your questions. Rhea, I am an ACCA affiliate, professional qualification, chartered accountant with more than 2 years experience. I've tried applying for jobs through LinkedIn and Theramin. I'm not fluent in Korean. I applied to international companies in Seoul, but no positive response was received. Do I have a chance getting hired when I'm actually in South Korea? Okay, so you have a lot of options here, Rhea. The first thing is even now, just start practicing your Korean, because any kind of Korean accounting or any kind of accounting that you do in Korean is going to be with Korean documents. It's going to be for Korean clients. And the language that most of them would speak would be Korean. There's starting to be a push for more financial documents to be also available in English. But if you're looking at internal accounting, all of the internal documents are going to be in Korean. So you're going to need to know like words for overhead and the words for, what is the word? Inventory. You're going to need to know those kinds of words in Korean. But do you have a chance? Absolutely. That is a super high skill. I don't know if that qualification would carry over exactly, or if you need to recertify yourself according to Korean accounting laws and Korean accounting practices. That's very likely. Most kind of like, like a nurse would need to recertify in Korea to make sure that they're up to Korean standards, et cetera, et cetera. So first look into that, start working on your Korean, but also maybe start applying to jobs that are outside of just accounting and in the general finance or business space. You might be able to qualify more for those than for the specific accounting processes. And I love the idea of applying to international companies. That's the way to go. But no positive response was received. I think that's pretty common. I'm in a few Facebook groups for like jobs back in the States. And the number of people who I hear being like, I applied to 100 jobs and I haven't heard anything. Today I applied to job 212 and I got my first response. Like, it's just a numbers game. The more that you can do, the better. And again, in the meanwhile, while you are applying to jobs, start working on your Korean. Maybe take some free classes, maybe invest in a textbook or a worksheet or something like that, to get you started. Because again, as soon as you learn Korean, they just announced this. I already said they announced this week, but they're really going to be focusing on the Korean skill level for incoming immigrants. That's really going to be a huge factor. And again, it's going to make your job hunt so much easier. So you absolutely have a chance. Do not take this as you do not have a chance. You absolutely have a chance if you just stick with it and are patient. And in the process, you can increase your chances at the same time. So let me just check and make sure. Okay, cool. Glad that helped. Emma, I'm taking a break from university right now, mental health reasons, praise that. And it's looking like I'm absolutely required to be enrolled in a school in my home country before applying for a visa. Let me think about that statement. Probably. Okay, yes, I think so. If there's any way I could straight up start studying there with no prior enrollment, is there anything you would recommend? Okay, so yeah, if you wanted to pick up kind of where you left off, Korea is not great for transfers from like one university to the other. I know that in the US, like you can transfer schools and your credits will transfer over. Their system doesn't work like that. I don't even know if they have like a credit system. I think that's why it doesn't transfer over. So you may have to start from scratch. But that being said, universities here are way cheaper than, are you going to BYU? Do you mind if I ask? Because that's where I went. But they're going to be a lot cheaper than they would be in general in the United States. So you may be better off just like applying and starting over. Also, though, just to be like perfectly transparent, I always want to provide everybody with the chance to be most successful in life. Korea is not great for mental health. Just keep that in mind. They don't have resources. They don't have an understanding. They don't really talk about it. Now there's great like telemedicine, better health. I'm not sure, but you can do like telephone meetings with like therapists and stuff like that. So you're not completely out of luck if you can't find a therapist or whatever you need here. But just keep in mind that there's not going to be a lot of support and or empathy because people just simply don't understand Korea has the highest suicide, maybe second highest now. I think new data just came out. Suicide rate out of all developed nations, and it's because they just don't talk about it. Yeah, you can protect yourself a bit, in my opinion, from the mental health issues that a lot of Koreans face by simply saying that you're not going to stress yourself out and try and have the most newest designer thing or try and be the prettiest or try and be the skinniest. Like, they're under so much pressure because the society puts them under so much pressure. But I know that you're from the United States. We're like very individualistic, where it's like, be yourself, embrace your quirks, be unique. So I think that we naturally like look at a lot of the pressure here and are like, why are you doing that to yourself? So as long as you maintain that, you can shield yourself a bit from that kind of negativity. As far as the enrollment thing, start applying to schools. I don't think that your current credits would transfer, but maybe you've only done one semester and it doesn't matter to you. Alternatively, if you just have a few semesters left, maybe you finish a few semesters and then go and teach English. Something like that. So you have a lot of options. You really do. It's just a matter of being creative and matching an option to what it is that you want to do. So let me know if that was helpful or if you have any further questions you want me to dig deeper into. Again, let me just reiterate, these are all my personal opinions. They may or may not work out. I'm doing my best to be helpful, but don't hold me too accountable here. Okay, Francisca, if I do a language course at a university, is it possible to access housing directly with them? Asking because that may sound more affordable. Yes, 100%. There are dorms available for language students and for just normal university students that is cheaper than like outside of university housing. Absolutely. Most universities have that. It can go quick, so just make sure, even be a little bit proactive. And I know that when I was applying to Pusan National University, I emailed the lady back and forth because I had a couple of questions. Don't be afraid to reach out and be like, hey, I will really need housing. When exactly do I need to sign up? How exactly do I reserve my spot? Like, the more proactive you are, the better chances you have of snagging one of those dorm rooms. But they definitely are available, and they are, I think, much more affordable. Okay, I went to Yonsei main campus in Seoul for a summer language program, and it was great. Now I'm trying to go to Korea for a master's. Cool. And I'm looking into a scholarship called the GKS, I think it's called. Yes, the Global Korea Scholarship. This is a scholarship. They talked about this. You know what? Let me pull up the link from last night, because a lot of you are looking to study. So this may be beneficial to you. I'm going to stop my screen share. It's just a Q&A anyway. Give me 1 second, because I think that this will be very helpful for you. There are going to be changes to GKS coming up. They have not announced them yet, but they are going to be emphasizing and like using the GKS as an incentive to try and get people to study at schools outside of Seoul, as well as study in majors like science and engineering and technology and stuff like that, because that's really where they're trying to like import talent into these kinds of those kinds of industries. So the GKS is absolutely an option. It will, what it does, for those of you who don't know, is it will subsidize or potentially pay for your school entirely for free, depending on like the amount of scholarship that you get. And yeah, so hopefully that was helpful. Again, more information will be forthcoming. They're expanding it. They're funding it even more. So there will be more scholarships available. So I'm not sure of your name, because it only comes up as iPad 8, but Mr. or Miss iPad 8, the GKS is a great option for you. All you would have to do is apply to the master's program that you're interested in, and then go from there and apply for the scholarship once you're accepted. Okay, Anna, probably Anna, sorry. I just got done with my bachelor's in advertising and want to go ahead and study in the same field along with entertainment management. Ooh. What is the scenario in Korea for these fields in terms of working? Okay, so there is another visa called an E6 visa, which is, now that I think about it, probably wouldn't apply, because it's more for like models, actors, like the actual like entertainment talent. But this is obviously a field that is hugely expanding. And may I just say, with the names of some of these groups, they could really benefit from some more English speakers in their marketing and their name choices, because some groups are dead on arrival because their name is a mix of letters and numbers. And you're like, what the heck is this? EX19B2. Sounds like a robot, not a K-pop group. Let me know in the chat if you know what I'm talking about. Hopefully you do. They're ridiculous. So please, Anna, let's get you to Korea. Advertising, marketing, those are, I would say, some of the jobs that are most in demand of native English speakers outside of teaching English, because there is this huge market that they're expanding into abroad. And yes, so in terms of applying for these jobs, this is going to be a lot of networking, I would think. So don't be afraid to reach out to people on LinkedIn. Don't be afraid to reach out to perhaps other Instagrammers or TikTok influencers or whoever has these types of jobs. Don't be afraid to reach out and try not to just do like, hey, let me extract all that I need from you, but to really be genuine and be like, hey, I've seen that you've done this. I've watched a lot of your videos already. I see you talk about this aspect. Can you expound a little bit further into that? Because, you know, if this TikTok person has already said, like, has already answered the question that you're going to ask, they're not going to be that inclined to help you because they're like, I've already talked about this. You didn't take advantage of the free resources already available. But that would, I think, be one of the ways to start getting your foot in the door, as well as, again, having native English or like fluent English along with Korean. Start working on your Korean skills because, again, you may be creating marketing in English, but your boss is probably going to be Korean, or the talent that you're going to need to find marketing for is going to be in Korean. And so the more that you can kind of bridge that gap, the more that you will be able to succeed in that job. So yeah, let me know if you have any further follow-up questions or if that filled your cup. Is that a phrase? I don't know. Susie, do all students in language schools study the same program, or are they split into different levels according to their proficiency in Korean? They're split into different levels. So there's 6 Korean levels. Every class is set up in the same way so that you will pass the topic test, which stands for Test of Proficiency in Korean. Really creative. So all of the programs are designed the same for that test. They are all designed teaching the exact same material so that you will pass that test. But you're not all in one class. It'll be like level 1 is together, or there might even be 3 classes of level 1 and then level 2 and 3 and so on and so forth. So hopefully that answers your question. You will not be a complete beginner and be with completely fluent people. That would be unfair. UVU, Emma. Very cool. Okay, about that, do universities accept applicants with mental health issues, let's say OCD, ADHD? Okay, so I just read another report. I read so much news because I'm interested in this. So they just came out with something that said that Korea is diagnosing 80% more kids with ADHD than before. Here's a thing. So they're going to have to start normalizing a lot of this kind of mental health talk, right? They're going to have to start dealing with it. They're going to have to start creating solutions for neurodivergent, I think that's the word, people with a variety of mental health issues that doesn't mean that they have the capabilities right now. They're not going to, okay, Anna from Frozen, thank you for that. I will pronounce it that way. They are not going to necessarily, they do ask you if you have mental health issues on a lot of applications. I would personally not put any information. I would not say that I did have that. There is a lot of stigma still attached to it. It can probably prevent you from being accepted. It's not illegal for that to happen here. And I would say, again, it depends on the severity also of the mental issue that we're dealing with, right? If you are heavily reliant on medication and you would be completely miserable, dysfunctional without that medication, you're going to want to do a lot of extra checks to make sure that you're going to either have a supply of that or be able to get access to that here, because not all medicine is available all over the world, right? Different countries allow different things. If it's just something that you can kind of self-manage, you'll probably be okay. Just keep an eye on it, obviously yourself. and try and stay ahead, because again, once things get bad, you won't have the same kind of resources available that you would have in the United States. On any forms or anything, I would check no, I do not have any mental health issues. They don't have a lot of the same kind of like counseling resources or anything like that. They're expanding, they're getting there, but they're not there yet. Oh, good for you, Emma. Slowly getting out of therapy. And why I'm looking into this, because studying Korean is the only thing I want to focus on right now. Good for you. Good for you. Then there's a great way to get your foot in the door as well, is come here, study Korean first for a semester or two, and then, you know, apply to university here, or alternatively finish university there, come here, study Korean, and use your time studying Korean to network and find jobs in the country, get to know people, get to know the work environment, make sure you like it. And then since you're American, you can always fall back on teaching English if you want to, which I love teaching. That's why I like doing these classes. That's why I enjoy things like this. So, you know, that's a great option for you as well. Okay, EXO and Mix It, 3 Racha. Yeah, I know. The names, man, they need some English marketers. Um, yes. Okay, Hazel is interested in the E6 visa. Let me know if you have any questions about that. I didn't talk about it because it's not as common, but I do know a bit about it, and I might be able to help. This actually did help me. Piggybacking off of Anna's question, I work in the events industry, brand experiences. Is there a lot of live experiences and events they do? US and UK are nuts for these sort of things, so you could pretty much do and go anything. Okay, cool. So event planning is eligible for an E7 visa. Like I said, I know because I hand typed out the entire freaking list. So yes, absolutely. This is something also, I don't know if you guys have been following, they had like the Boy Scouts, the Scouts Jamboree, scouts from all over the world came to Korea, and it was an absolute disaster. They are trying to do more international event planning, or host more international groups, particularly in the run-up to the bid for Busan to have the World Expo. They need foreigners involved. One of the issues with the Jamboree was that they didn't have halal food. They didn't have gluten-free food, which a lot of people all around the world have different dietary restrictions. And that's not something that was really considered, because again, not out of hatred. They're not saying we don't want to cook halal. They just don't even consider it because it's not something that they're familiar with. And so I would say, if you find event planning companies, and again, maybe read some news articles, and maybe you'll find something that says the company that was in charge of planning this event, or the government partnered with such and such company. Reach out to them and say, hey, look, there have been these kinds of experiences lately with Korean events, and here have been the issues. Here's how I can help solve them, et cetera, or whatever. And maybe like try and explain why your skills and why your foreign perspective is so important, because good God, it's so important. There's so much stuff here that doesn't make any sense to the rest of the world because we all use Google and they don't. And that's just one example. Like, that's not that serious of a thing. I clearly love Korea, but that's true. It's completely different in a lot of those ways. Okay. Yes, I've heard about the visa for K-pop fans. I don't know if this is a real thing, just wanted confirmation. Okay. So they announced this probably about a year ago. They said that there's going to be 2 new visas, a digital nomad visa. I think they're calling it a workation visa, is I think the actual terms that they're using, where you can work for a company outside of Korea but live here. They're introducing that visa, as well as one specifically for people who want to come and study like K culture. So people who specifically want to come and get a degree in or study, like go to K-pop dance classes, or want to study producing from Korean producers. They're opening up visas for that. Those are 2 things that they announced. about a year ago. They're supposed to be coming in the second half of this year, but it's August and I haven't heard anything else. So TBD, but it is a real thing as far as we know. OMG, Susie. Everybody, virtual applause for Susie, who's already topic level 5. I'm like topic level 2. Will it still be useful to study in a language school? As I thought that a student visa would be easier to change to a work visa in Korea. Couple questions, Susie. So first, level 5, you could get, I think there's a level 6, you could get level 6 if you wanted, not really needed. You could teach at any job that, or sorry, work at any job that you wanted with your topic level 5. It is probably easier to go from a student visa to a work visa because it does give you more time to find a job, to network, get your foot in the door, stuff like that. But I don't know if you've already at topic level 5, maybe you want to explore a master's degree or something like that, since I don't think that language school would necessarily get you that much further ahead. Yeah, also very good job. Good for you. I don't know much about the E6 visa. So can you tell us what you know? Sure, Hazel. So the E6 visa is basically a visa for people in the entertainment industry. So people who want to come and be models, or people who want to come and be K-pop stars, all of like Felix. Oh no, he's a Korean, he's an Australian Korean. He's got Korean heritage. So he's probably on an F4, but somebody who doesn't have any Korean heritage would be on an E6 visa. What else do I know? I know that you have to read your contract, just like everything else. Read your contract carefully. A lot of people can end up with really bad contracts. I'm going to look for another article to send you guys. This should be good. A lot of people kind of end up not getting paid very much because of the way that their contract is kind of written. Or they end up stuck and they can't leave. Here's an article kind of about that. Yes, it can be bad, but again, it just depends on your contract. Read your contract. There's a lot of really great companies out there. For every bad one, there's a good one. You only hear about the bad ones because who's going to be like, yeah, this worked out for me. That's not an interesting news story, right? Nobody talks about that. So just some things to keep in mind that, can I meet you personally when you get to Korea? Sure. When whoever wants to come to Korea, if you want to come to Busan, we can have like a little meetup at a cafe or something. That would be, I think, really fun. So that is, as far as I know, that's what I know about the visa. Sometimes these companies, they might make you responsible for finding your own jobs. And if you aren't finding jobs and if you aren't bringing in money, they can get angry at you for that. So again, it's really going to depend on your contract. Read, ask questions. If you don't like it, don't sign it. Find something else. There are better things out there. So yeah, I think that is a fabulous thing. They just have a lot of potential to do then. Yes, exactly. It's just, I think this is going back to the mental health or really anything. It's just a new world to them. This is again what I was saying with the discrimination. They don't have experiences with enough people to have true hatred of anybody, except for maybe the Japanese who invaded them. It's a long historical thing that I won't go into. But they don't really have there's no hatred. There's discrimination because of ignorance, not discrimination because, oh my gosh, 500 years ago, they did this to us. No, they don't have experiences like that. Black Swan is a group that has no Korean people in it, so they probably have E6. 100%, I would fully agree with that. They're probably all on E6 visas. I plan to go to Korea next May or June, and I'm definitely going to Busan. Come to Busan. It's so great. Any universities you would suggest for advertising and entertainment management? Okay, I don't know of any, but here's what I would do. Look up some, this might take a little bit of deep research, but it's out there. Look up maybe some actors or see, because sometimes managers will do interviews with a whole show called The Manager. Look at, do a little bit of research and see if any of them talked about where they went to school. The Sky universities are always going to have connections. Seoul University, Korea University, Yonsei. But that's another option as well, is see who has come out of what universities, and then you'll get kind of an idea of the alumni network. You might even make a chart. You might even make an Excel spreadsheet and say, Park Seo-joon graduated from this university. I don't even know if he went to university. Suho from EXO graduated from this university in this degree. Obviously, if he graduated in business, it's not going to matter too much. But yeah, that might give you a feel for kind of the alumni network that's out there. Again, it's going to take some deep research. You could also just Google Korea universities that are good at advertising and entertainment and see what you get. But that is what I would do for those kinds of questions. Anybody else have any other questions? Starting to lose my voice. So it is so hot in here. This room doesn't have air conditioning. And I didn't open that window over there, and it's too hot. I'm hot. Okay, I'm not seeing any other questions come through. So with that, this is going to be uploaded onto YouTube. It'll probably be a piece of Korean cake. Piece of Korean cake. What's my Instagram handle? God, it's so embarrassing. I could have used your advertising and marketing skills. It will be advertised. It'll be uploaded probably onto a YouTube channel that I've yet to create. So yes, it will be up there sometime tomorrow. I'll send out an email to everybody. And yeah, we'll do more of these about different topics. I think it's just fun. I think it's fun to get to know you guys. Hopefully I'm a fun person. I think I'm a fun person. So we'll do more of this. So everybody have a great evening, and we will, let's stay in touch. Keep it up in the DMs or whatever cool people say. Okay. Have a great evening or day, everyone, wherever you are. Bye.